And here with Cape Breton Screamy Eagles head of scouting, Jacques Carriere, ahead of the QMJHL draft. Very exciting time for fans and management alike. Before we get into the specifics, Jack, I'll ask you, 3 picks in the first round. How excited are you and everybody else with the Screamy Eagles heading into the draft?
Very excited, actually. There's nothing like being a head scout and heading with your hands full of picks. All the work you've done through the season is going to pay off, and that you're gonna get your team better, and so it's really exciting when you go to the draft and you don't have any picks in the first round, or for some teams where you have no picks in the first, second round. It's really tough on a head scout. You go and see the hockey, and or everything could change at the draft. I always say it's not an exact science, so you don't have picks, you could end up with some, and you have picks and you could end up with none. But where we're sitting today, I'm really happy for sure.
Now, looking ahead specifically, I see traveling on the road, the relationship between you and Marc-Andre, you're obviously in contact with each other a lot. When the team's actually at the podium or at the desk getting ready to make its selection, how does that process go, the final decision on actually picking a player between a scout or the general manager?
Well, on the Friday before the draft, we have a draft-specific meeting. So at that time, we'll know where we stand, what picks we have left, where we're heading, and all that stuff. For the first-round picks, it's always the best player available. So on the Friday night, we sit down with the hockey committee, all the scouts. We know what we left on the table as far as picks. Every single scenario is put on the table. If this player is there, what do we do? What's our next pick? Do we select a forward? Do we select a D? If we selected a forward for the first pick, then do we go for a D? And on and on and on and on and on and on. And every single scenario is looked at.
Yeah, it's certainly an extensive process. I'm sure people might be surprised at how much goes into that. Now, walk us through, in terms of evaluating an individual player. Obviously, there's a lot to consider because you see guys playing throughout the year in different situations. I also understand there's an interview process. What goes into measuring one specific player? How does a scout evaluate talent in that way?
So what we do in the season, during the season, our lists are split between 2 lists. So one being the Maritime list and one being the Quebec list. And the Quebec scouts compile their list with regards to going to major AAA games, regular season game, and all the tournaments that are in Quebec. We have a couple major tournaments that the scouts would attend. And then we do the same thing in the Maritimes. So our regional scouts would collate their list and attend the major tournaments. What we've been doing this year is that we've done somewhat of a crossover, because there's nothing like getting to a meeting, for instance, the final meeting, and the Quebec guys can only talk about the Quebec guys, and the Maritime guys can only talk about the Maritime guys. So it's kind of tough to see where a guy sits in the merger of the 2 lists. So what we do is we have crossovers. So the Maritime guys will cover 2 or 3 major tournaments in Quebec, and the Quebec guys will cover, for instance, the Monctonian, the East Coast Ice Jam in Halifax in January, and perhaps the Atlantics or something like that. So we have every single scout has a real strong sample of his own league and a crossover. So when we get to the final meeting, everybody can talk about the top guys in every league. And then from there on, we merge the 2 lists together. Marc-Andre and I go on the road and we interview most of the top players, all of the top players on our list, and with very, very specific questions with regards to personality, leadership, and because we think it takes a special person to become an Eagle, and not every hockey player out there can be an Eagle and meet those criteria. So we definitely want our guys, our prospective players, to adhere to our philosophy. And there's not a single interview that we go in that we don't talk about Greg Lynch. And that philosophy was dictated to us via our team president Andre Cote from Mr. Lynch, and we really tried to make transpire that in our interviews. And we definitely want our players to be good person. We know that not every single player that makes it to the draft, that makes it to our league, makes it to the NHL, but we definitely want those players that can make it to the NHL to go there. So we make it clear that we offer great hockey development, but through Mr. Lynch and through our team philosophy, that if should the NHL or pro career not pan out for you, we want you to be an outstanding individual in society, in the community, get an education, and drive on forward in life via what you've obtained with the Cape Breton and Screaming Eagles.
You scout character. You talked about that, imparting philosophy of the team. You're also more than likely going to bring in veteran players as well at the draft. It's very rare a team will go through a draft without making any trades. How does the scouting handle players that are already in the league, and how do you handle the character aspect of that, looking at the personalities of players that are already active in the queue?
I keep all the interviews throughout the years, so a player that we would go and get in some kind of a trade or whatever, I would definitely have my notes, but we also do some kind of investigative work and legwork through some contacts we have, some old coaches that coach that player and whatnot, and players have reputations in the league. We know who the guys are that we think have the characteristics of being an Eagle, and we know those who don't match those criteria so much. So there's from that perspective, there's also some kind of an investigation. It's almost like doing police work when you think about it. So we actually go ahead and do an investigation and character and all that stuff. And sometimes people tell us, no, don't go that route. Then some other people go, hey, I wouldn't hesitate 1 second to go that route with that player or something like that. So.
Well, it's certainly an interesting process, Jack. We thank you for walking us through it. I know fans are excited to see who the new players are, both veterans and draft picks, and good luck come draft day.
Thank you very much, Pat.